Hello everyone! Blizzcon is about a month away from now, so I thought it would be a fun idea to sit down and speculate on the possible storylines that they might use for the next expansion. Now keep in mind that this is all pure speculation to cover a couple of the lore hooks that they've got going on, a couple of lore ideas that they might use. If about 10% of this video turns out to be true, then I would call it a victory. Let's see what we can come up with, shall we? First of all, the general story for both factions. The Horde and Alliance are negotiating and a new attempt at peace is going to be made. That means that the Horde and Alliance conflict won't be so prominent in the picture as it was in Mist of Pandaria. The Horde is going to need some time to heal and readjust. They have Vol'jin as a new war chief, possibly Thrall as leader of the Orcs, and the Horde has a capital city that needs rebuilding. Sylvanas has a story that needs to be told, but I don't see it happening in the next expansion. We're just done with Garrosh trying to cause some trouble, killing a whole bunch of people. I don't see them going back to an internal Horde conflict, at least not yet. Speaking of Garrosh, we've seen a vision where he's locked up in a cage in Pandaria. My prediction is that he's going to escape his cage, perhaps with the help of Anduin, perhaps with the help of Jaina, perhaps by his own accord, and he's going to roam the world for a while, and after that he's going to get a redemption story, just like Doomhammer had, just like his father had. If anything, that would be my prediction. I don't see them actually killing him off. The Alliance is united and they were behind the High King's decision to leave Orgrimmar to the Horde. The only one who suggested otherwise is Miss Jaina Proudmoore, leader of the Kirin Tor. Now I have a very hard time predicting what they're going to do with her. She could just leave the Alliance, take the Kirin Tor and go back to being neutral, embrace Verina's decision and go with the flow, but I don't see this happening. She seems hell-bent on hating the Horde, so that means that Dalaran and the Kirin Tor are going to be a little bit empty. She still has the Sun Reavers imprisoned, which she could let go of course, but I don't see them returning to the Kirin Tor even if she lets them go. A third option is that Jaina leaves the Kirin Tor entirely, to Caligos for example, which would allow the Sun Reavers to return to Dalaran, and she takes up the position of ruling her father's kingdom called Tiras. Like I said, it will be very interesting to see what they're going to do with Jaina. When it comes to the next expansion, a Burning Legion expansion is one of the two most likely to be the next one. Say that we do go in this direction, then I don't think we're going to sit and wait for the Burning Legion to come to us. This story has been done several times now, and this time we have someone who warns us in advance, namely Reffion. He has been prophesizing the entire expansion about the return of the Legion, and he made a new friend on Pandaria named Anduin Rin. It's not hard to imagine that these two spoke about Reffion visions, and I can definitely see Anduin warning us, perhaps his father or maybe even Velen the Prophet. Velen and his people have been running from the Legion ever since Sargeras came to the planet and corrupted most of their race. From that moment on, they met the Naaru. They've been working on defeating the Legion and getting the Army of Light ready to go. The Naaru, they are beings of pure light dead set on defeating the Burning Legion, so they could be a very strong ally in the battle against the Legion. Velen has seen Anduin in a vision leading the Army of Light against the darkness, and the Draenei have repaired their ship, the Exodus, which is capable of traveling through the Great Dark and the Twisting Nether. Now the Great Dark is the term used for anything we haven't explored in the Warcraft universe, so any planet that we haven't seen yet, outer space, the universe, that is called the Great Dark. So Anduin goes around telling others about the warning of Reffion. The Burning Legion is coming, we gotta do something, let's go people. There's currently a truce between the Alliance and the Horde which would allow both factions to come on board and travel into space. That's right people, space adventures to planets we've only heard about, or perhaps even planets unknown to anyone. Another way that we could start our space adventures would be in the Black Temple. In the Warlock Greenfire questline we find out that Illidan had a great source of arcane power right there in the Black Temple. Kendrafot says that this power is much like the power from the original Well of Eternity, which suggests that Illidan used his lost vial to create this fount of power. In the War of the Ancients, the Highborn tried to use this power of the Well of Eternity to summon Sargeras into our world. Why not use this power to create a portal to the Legion itself? Either way, I see us taking the battle to the Legion itself. Some demons can only be killed in the Twisting Nether. which would finally start to do some damage to the ranks of the Legion. What we have done in the past is defeat demons, some very powerful demons, and some of them we've actually killed. As far as we know, Archimonde, for example, he's dead. But there are demons, mainly the Nafrezim, who have only returned to the Twisting Nether after we killed them. So they're not entirely dead and they could come back when they've recovered. So say that we do take the battle to the Twisting Nether, then we could finally make some headway, we could finally diminish the numbers of the Burning Legion. Would make a great start, would lead us to a road of finding Sargeras and taking on that mastermind. What we might face in the Great Dark is anyone's guess really, which allows for a lot of freedom in the story, but there are some planets that we do know about. Argus is the home planet of the Draenei. This is the planet that received a visit from Sargeras and became the place where he converted Archimonde and Kil'jaeden into his army. This is also the place where Velen took his people and fled from the Burning Legion because he didn't want to become part of their army, and which set pretty much the entire Warcraft story in motion. By now it's said that the planet is conquered by the Legion, and it might even be Kil'jaeden his home base, which would be an excellent end-boss for the Burning Legion. Kil'jaeden in his full glory, full power, would just be about right for all of us. Karesh used to be the home planet of the Ethereals, the race that was introduced in the Burning Crusade and now offers their servers for transmogrification, reforging and upgrading gear. The people of Karesh didn't always look like the mummy void things that they are now. It's because of Dimensius, his attack on their planet, that they became these beings and nearly all of their planet got destroyed. They killed Dimensius in the Burning Crusade and it's unknown what happened to their planet after that. But it's fair to assume that it would look very similar to Outland, all broken up and nearly destroyed. Zorov is the planet where the Warlocks, their Dreadsteeds, come from. It's unknown if the entire planet is just used for breeding horses or if the Burning Legion uses it for other activities. Fanlin Deskor is a planet that Velen, together with Anduin, saw in a vision. In the vision, the planet looked beautiful, basking in the power of the light, until it got destroyed by the Legion and there was nothing left but ash and broken matter. It's possible that the entire planet now is gone, or that a little bit of it survived. In Warcraft 3 we see a meeting of the Dreadlords, also known as the Nafrezim. They convene on their homeworld, but it's never explained what the name of this world is. It's speculated that this might be Zorov or an entirely different planet all on its own. Now those are the planets that we know about, but it is said that the Legion conquered thousands of planets, so it's very likely that they could add more worlds to this, with entirely new species, new fauna, new worlds, completely new. All the freedom in the world to create new stories. Excellent. So what do we have? Planets, we have Great Dark Beyond, traveling through space and the Twisting Nether. For those that don't know, the Twisting Nether, well, it's a little bit hard to describe since it's been given several descriptions. Every time that you use a mage portal or you're summoned by a warlock, you travel through the Twisting Nether to your location. So it connects worlds and places and it allows for teleportation. Some demons, they live in the Twisting Nether and some of them return to the Twisting Nether when they die to recover. We've seen this mostly with the Nafrezim, but it's also rumored that this happens to the demons of the warlocks. As a warlock you can sacrifice your demon, a second after that you can summon him again, which implies that those demons also return to the Twisting Nether. The reason why I explain this, why the Twisting Nether is important, that's for two reasons. The first reason is that fighting the demons in the Twisting Nether would actually start to hurt the Burning Legion for real and put a dent in their numbers. When you fight an enemy that can't be killed on your world, it's damn handy to kill them on their own playing field. This is the same as we've seen with Ragnaros the Firelord. He also couldn't be killed on our world and we had to go to the Firelands to finish the job. The second reason is a speculated return of Illidan Stormrage. At Blizzcon, Chris Metzen said that he would love to bring Illidan back into the story. Pride from the Smoking Gamer, he did a speculation video on how they could do this. And one explanation could be that Illidan absorbed so much demonic power that he himself turned into a demon. That means that it was no longer possible to kill him on our world and all we did was send him to the Twisting Nether. By going into space, this would allow us to see a return of the Betrayer and then the question becomes, on what side will he be? Chris Metzen also said that he's a sucker for the redemption story, so I would imagine Illidan being on our side. He has always hated the Burning Legion and he might even have spent his years battling them in the Twisting Nether. The return of Illidan would also give them an opening to bring Maiev back into the story. Maiev has gone crazy ever since he killed Illidan because, as he said,
"But the Huntress is nothing without the hunt. You are nothing without me."
He is right. I feel nothing. I am nothing.
She was last seen in the novel Wolfheart, where she tried to kill Malfurion Stormrage and a couple of High Elves. Her brother Jared Shadowsong saved Malfurion and drove his sister off. It's unknown where she currently is, but the return of Illidan would give the Huntress something to hunt again, and would be great for getting her back into the story. What I personally would love to see is Illidan losing his obsession with Tyrande. He's too good for her, man, let him go for Maiev. She's crazy now, just about as crazy as he was. Let them become a couple. I would love to see that. Besides Illidan Stormrage, there is the possibility of two other heroes returning to the story, Illyria and Tyrellian. They went missing sometime after the Second War, and it's highly likely that they too ended up somewhere in the Twisting Nether or on a planet somewhere in the Great Dark. Someone already asked me on Twitter if the new Murloc pet with the coming Blizzcon might have a connection to the new WoW expansion, and as you can see, this Murloc is a Crusader. Tyrellian was also a Paladin of the Holy Light, so if I had to make a guess if this is linked to the next expansion, I would say it's hinting to Tyrellian. Tyrellian would be a great character to start pushing Anduin into the role of the leader of the Army of Light. Currently, I don't think they can use Anduin as a leader of the Army of Light, so I don't see this happening in the new expansion. What I envisioned after reading this story was that the great battle that the Army of Light was approaching was a battle against Sargeras himself, and I don't see us going against Sargeras in the next expansion. He is just too damn powerful. He might show up here and there, but I don't think he will be the end boss. So that means they still have time to put Anduin on that road, and I personally think Tyrellian would be a great character for that job. In his lifetime, Tyrellian had trouble with finding his faith in the light, but he had no trouble with fighting when it was for a good cause. Anduin is the exact opposite. He has an easy time with the faith in the light, but a very hard time with fighting itself. I can't imagine a better character to guide Anduin on the path of perhaps becoming a paladin, but at least a great leader for the future Army of Light. If anyone can bring Anduin into action, I would imagine it to be Tyrellian. As an end boss for this kind of an expansion, I mentioned it before, I think Kil'jaeden in his full glory and power would be just perfect. Some have speculated Sargeras, but as I said, in my mind he's just way too powerful to take on right now. He is a cornerstone of the WoW lore, and I don't see them killing him off anytime soon. He might make an appearance, which would be awesome on its own to see a former Titan, but I don't think he will be a boss. Besides Kil'jaeden himself, I can't really imagine a main boss, but that's because the Great Dark is very big and very unexplored. They could create so many new things, so many new races, new stories. For all we know, they might show the source behind the old gods, or the source behind corrupted titans, or the home planet of the Naru, or let your imagination go crazy. So that's a story that I can imagine with the Burning Legion, which in short means space adventures, unexplored planets, Naru, Kil'jaeden, Tyrellian, Illyria, perhaps even Illidan, perhaps Sargeras. Also, of course, lots of killing of the members of the Burning Legion, and perhaps even a couple of new races and planets. Who knows what they've recruited in all those years? Who knows? Perhaps we'll even get a chance to meet the Titans. The second possible expansion is a South Sea expansion, and when I say South Seas, you could go with the Dark Below, Tropical Party, whatever name you want to give. It's aimed at the oceans of Azeroth. The way that I see it, this expansion would take off where the Naga story in the Cataclysm ended. We got a glimpse at Queen Azshara, and the Naga managed to capture Neptulon the Tidehunter. Neptulon ruled the waters of Azeroth and those that lived in it. Now he's in the hands of the Naga, and we can only speculate on what they might do with him. It's hinted that the old god N'Zoth is imprisoned beneath the waters. In one of the questlines in Vajir, there's a quest mob that comes down from the bottom of the sea, and he tells you that he wants to take you with him down below to his master. There are a bunch of tentacles around the area, and N'Zoth might have been the one behind the transformation of the Highborn into the Naga. As Queen Azshara and her people transformed, the old god whispered to them that when the day would come, they would serve them well. I think that they're planning on releasing N'Zoth upon the world, and claiming dominance over the waters is a step in the right direction. When the summoning of Sargeras failed during the War of the Ancients and the Well of Eternity imploded, 80% of the landmass was sucked to the bottom of the sea. 80%! And the only bits that we've seen so far was in the Cataclysm with the Vajir zone. That means that there is still a lot to explore and a lot of freedom to add new things. Just imagine what could be waiting for us at the bottom of the sea. For example, the new capital city of the Naga called Nashatar, which is speculated to be beneath the Maelstrom. The Maelstrom was actually formed by the Well of Eternity imploding, and my guess would be that this is the base of operations for the Naga, including their queen Azora. For those that hated the Vajir zone, don't worry, there are plenty of things that could happen on the surface. For example, you have the kingdom of Kulturas, which was the kingdom of Admiral Dalen Proudmoore, and he is the father of Jaina Proudmoore. It's unknown who currently rules the kingdom or what's going on there, since we haven't seen it in the game yet. We have the island called Zandalar, which is the main island of the Zandalari and the other troll tribes. In Mr. Pandaria we find out that Zandalar was hit hard by the Cataclysm, and the trolls set out to team up with the Mogu and try to claim Pandaria for their own. It's suggested by the waterlogged journals that you could find on the Isle of Thunder that Zandalar didn't instantly sink to the bottom of the ocean and that it could still be above the sea floor. If that is the case, we might even see the king of the trolls, King Rastakhan himself. At Blizzcon 2010, someone asked if we would ever go back to the island of the Goblins, Kazan and the Undermines and that entire area. They told her that they would love to go back there, since the questing area only showed a small portion of that area and they would love to show more of that. Perhaps they can even reclaim the island for the Goblins and give them a new base to live on. Would be fantastic. Now that are just a few examples of some of the islands that we know about. Besides that, they always have the liberty of adding more, for example the Isle of Giants or the Timeless Isle. Who knew that that was out there in the ocean? I personally would love to make more use of the boat that they give you in Thousand Needles. If you could upgrade that boat to carry friends and have sea battles, that would make me a very happy pirate. The last area that I could see play a part in this expansion is a small part of the Emerald Dream called the Rift of Aln. In the novel Stormrage, Malfurion and others battle with the Emerald Nightmare, and in the end they manage to banish it to a small part of the dream, the Rift of Aln. Malfurion is unable to remove all of the corruption, and he senses that the source of this corruption is coming from somewhere beneath the oceans of Azeroth. Once again, a link to Enzov, and I think that if we're supposed to push Enzov back into his container, that we also need to break his connection to the Emerald Dream. This would definitely fit in with the whispers of Yasharaj, who whispered about Nyalofa and the fish who know all the secrets.
You will rest in Nyalofa.
We don't know exactly where Nyalofa is or what it is, but it's heavily suggested that it's somewhere at the bottom of the sea. So in short, as a main enemy for this expansion, I would see Queen Azora and her Naga, who are trying to release Enzov upon our world. Our mission will be to free Ozumat and Neptulon and get the resistance to battle the Naga and Queen Azora. We might even get some aid from the Kavaldir and the Murlocs, unless the Naga have used Neptulon's powers to turn the entire ocean against us. Besides that, we could see pretty much any creature from the sea, from Murlocs to pirates to gigantic kraken and anything in between. Of course, we would also see minions of the old gods, faceless ones, and who knows what else has been laying dormant at the bottom of the sea. Now a lot of you have commented, why not put these two expansions together? Why not make Queen Azora, the one who attempts to summon Sargeras again, team up with the Burning Legion and do it all in one go? Now I must agree that it's not a bad idea. Old gods and Burning Legion teaming up, it would be fantastic, but I doubt that it will happen. One reason is that if they focus on two stories at the same time, neither one of them really comes out well, and as you can see, both have plenty of story to tell. Another reason is that Azora already tried to summon Sargeras and they failed once. This cost her and her people their cities, their lands, and even their bodies. I don't think she would want to associate herself with the Burning Legion again. That's the general storyline done the way that I see it, but there are of course more storylines waiting to be explored. But they could be placed in the next expansion after that, they could be placed anywhere. For example, Megatha Grimtotem still wants revenge on the Tauren and perhaps all of the Horde. She could potentially team up with King Rastakhan or maybe even the Naga. Sylvanas is on a dark path and the only one that might turn her around is her sister Alleria. The necklace given by her sister is the only thing that makes her feel again. So like I said, she might be the salvation of Sylvanas before there's no more salvation possible. Raytheon and his final titan that must be rebuilt. We have no clue who or what this final titan is, so it's very hard to predict when this is going to take place. Perhaps it's in outer space, perhaps under the ocean, perhaps in a different time period, perhaps it's gone and they might forget all about it. Who knows? With a new expansion, there's always the question, are they going to add new races or new classes? Now, I personally hope that they don't add any new races to the game, because they can't give even the current races their story, let alone if they add another. Besides that, I couldn't really think of a race that would fit. A lot of forums, they talk about, for example, the High Elves. With Alleria returning, you might see the High Elves back into the Alliance. I don't see them joining the Horde, because the Horde has already Blood Elves, two races that looked very similar. That would be strange. But that's the same reason why I don't see them joining the Alliance, because that would just be a copy of the Blood Elves. You have, of course, the ever requested Murlocs, which could be a very funny race, definitely. You have the Cavaldir, who've been fighting the Naga for a very long time, and they seem to be serving Neptulon, and of course the Naga themselves. Now the problem with the Naga is that there is no way that the Night Elves would accept them. Unless they do a major twist in the lore again, that will never ever happen. Not only is the lore a problem, there's also the technical difficulties of the mounts and the armor. If they're going to add a new race, I would see the Jinyu and the Hosen coming with us. That could be very interesting. They already have an origin story, they have a land to call their own. It could be a very easy fix to adding some new races. Adding a new class, now that's an entirely different story, which they could take in many different directions. I personally would love to see a hero class for every class. I wanted this ever since they introduced the Death Knights. Back then they said that the Death Knight was the first hero class, which implied that more could follow. But so far, we've seen nothing. I would love it if they would give each class a questline which would allow you to upgrade your character. For example, a druid could follow a storyline to become a archdruid. A mage could become a guardian. Strange suggestion, but just go with it. A rogue could become a warden, you know, stuff like that. It doesn't even have to become a major change. A purely cosmetic one would make me incredibly happy. Now say that they would introduce a new class, then there are two possibilities that seem most likely to me. And the first one is the Demon Hunter class. Although similar to the Warlocks and the Hunters, they're not exactly the same. They mainly use arcane and fire spells, and they're capable of wielding melee weapons, so it would be a caster melee hybrid. Just imagine Illidan, but then you are him. Lore-wise, there haven't been a lot of successful Demon Hunters. Most of them either died or they went insane during their training. But if we do see Illidan return, he might teach us his ways. Another bonus to this class is that it can be learned by any race. The second possibility is something Ghostcrawler mentioned in an interview, which is a support class or spec. A completely new role besides the known tank, DPS or healer. This class would support his group by buffing them, shielding them, motivating them. Imagine a bard, for example. We've seen one of them in a questline in the Twilight Highlands. Russell Brouwer, a dwarf who plays his instrument and gives you regeneration. Now imagine that you could stand in your raid, you could jam on your guitar, give a solo, increasing the power of the raid with music. I would definitely be behind such a class. Could definitely be fun, and a new class type after all these years could be very refreshing. On a final note, before we end this speculation video, I have mentioned 3 other possibilities which they could use for the next expansion. Heroes of the Storm is a name Blizzard recently trademarked, and it's so vague that there isn't much to say about it. You could apply it to the South Sea expansion, where the Naga used Neptulana's powers to create a massive oceanic storm. You could apply it to the Burning Legion expansion, where the Heroes of the Storm are actually Turellian and Alleria, perhaps even Illidan, who have been holding back the storm of the demonic legion. I personally think this is the name for a possible Hearthstone expansion pack. Currently Hearthstone is called Hearthstone Heroes of Warcraft. Why not let the next one be Hearthstone Heroes of the Storm? Kinda like an expansion pack, perhaps a couple of new heroes, maybe something from a different Warcraft franchise, who knows? I could be entirely wrong though, for all we know this could be something entirely different. The Warcraft movie, Warcraft Dota, who knows? The Emerald Dream, as I've explained in my speculation video, that story is done in the novel Stormrage. We might see a small part of the Emerald Dream as we've seen it before, but I don't see an entire expansion taking place inside that realm. There's just not enough story left to do it. The last and final possibility is a time travel expansion, which only recently came up in the speculation. On the Timeless Isle you follow a questline which leads you to seeing a couple of visions throughout time. One of them is the death of the consort of Nosdormu named Soridormi. We have no idea what this is all about, but it implies something happening with the bronze dragonflight. Dragons don't take kindly to their mates dying, but we don't know how she dies. Perhaps she got assassinated by the quest giver, perhaps she just died because the aspects gave up their powers. All in all, it could mean that we're going to harness the power of the Timeless Isle and travel through time. This could lead us to any story in the past, War of the Ancients perhaps, or maybe we're going to go back even further to the aspects receiving their powers, or back even further to the Titan shaping Azeroth. It could also send us in the future of course, but either way it would be a big mess. Blizzard has never been able to pull off a good time travel story without messing things up, so I really hope that they don't go with a time travel expansion. Anyways, I think it's time for me to stop rambling and just sit back and wait for Blizzcon. As I mentioned before, I'm not going to Blizzcon myself, but I am going to see it on the live stream. If I know anything special, if there's any news, I'll make sure to let you guys know as soon as possible. Thank you very much for listening everyone, and like I said, this is all pure speculation. Blizzard could go crazy and do an entirely different expansion, or maybe Mist of Pandaria was the last one. I doubt it to be honest, but it is to show that nobody knows anything. Not until BlizzCon, and like I said, if 10% of this video turns out to be true, I'm very happy. If you have speculation of your own, feel free to comment down below or send it over to askfm/noble. I'm going to use your speculation in the next Q&A for Saturday and see if we can come up with anything interesting, see if you guys know anything that I don't. I hope we can get some good speculation going and I can't wait to read it all. Thank you very much for watching everyone, subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!